Right, well, I've mate. Just me and thee. Forget about everyone else. How do? What do you say down Coventry?
Nothing. You try and avoid making contact if you can.
Are you going to try and how do?
I do.
I do. Right, guys, before we start this, I'm going to tell you a little story. Me and Paul, this is Paul. I've just spent some time chatting with his missus. Very nice. His missus is supporting him. His missus has encouraged him to come and have this chat with myself. Paul wants to do this, like a lot of people. If it helps one person, mission accomplished. I'll definitely get upset. He's going to get upset. So, little story first. So I had a mate, a rugby mate. I never played. I did play at the same club, but not at the same time as him. Big lad, 6'7", 18 stone, ripped. Played in some memorial games, a couple of tour games with him. So we're out one night, usual thing. You've ended up on your own in a curry house. You've ended up splitting up with the rest of the guys. Really, really drunk. He says to me, can we have a chat? You know, one of these serious chats. I says, of course you can. I was a lot younger then. I didn't have the skills, or, you know, I weren't where I am now. He says, I want to talk about domestic violence. I knew his missus, 5 foot, petite, very, very pretty. So I thought, wow, here we go. Anyway, I got it completely wrong. She's been abusing him, battering him for years. I didn't know what to say. We spent 10 minutes talking about it. I said very little. Looking at him, you know, I'm not getting my head around it. Now, today, I mean, this is years ago, you know, when I look, when they were together, the few times that I've seen them together in sort of a rugby club environment, he wasn't his usual outgoing self. You don't see it then after a few pints. You know, she wore the trousers, as it were. 15 years he put up with it. I don't know where he is now. I don't know whether he stayed in the relationship. So that's the introduction to this video, guys. Paul, ex-copper, just tell us, mate, if you'd like, why you wanted to be a police officer.
Really, honestly and truly, was to help other people. I just thought, it's a job for me. I really wanted to do it. And I was working somewhere, and my boss at the time was an ex-chief superintendent, and he encouraged me. He says, you can do it. So mid-30s, I think it was, I applied, went through the whole thing.
Late starter then?
Yeah. I thought I'd see a bit of life first. Saw a lot of life as it happened, but I thought I'll see a bit of life first, and when I'm settled, then I'll do it. And I put the application in, and I just passed everything. I was amazed. I never thought I'd get in, and I did.
About when was this, mate?
Year 2000 it was.
That millennium?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I joined. Did probably about 6 years. I was married at the time with 2 lovely kids, but the marriage was falling apart. Both of us weren't happy, a lot of arguing and stuff like that, so the marriage was basically over. We were living at the same place, but the marriage was over. I fell for somebody on my shift. It was basically, we both hit it off. We were friends at first, obviously, and then I actually left my wife. And within a few.
But it didn't end the relationship. That was already done.
The relationship was over. Even now, we've spoke about it, and we both knew that we weren't right for each other. We had 2 smashing kids out of it, and that, you know. But we weren't right for each other, and that was it. We were just totally different. We had nothing in common or anything like that. Only twice. But I split up with her and started seeing this other girl. Not straight away. She didn't cause the breakup or anything. started seeing her, and basically she got her own house, and I moved in there, and been together a few months, and my mum died.
Which always has a big impact on your life.
It really did, yeah. It changed my whole outlook on life, because I'd got nowhere to go then. Up until that time, I'd always got somewhere to go and talk.
Do you know what? That is a really interesting point. Do you know, I have no regrets in life, but I've always said to people, when my mum died, I had my nan. But when my nan died, bless her, I've always felt, you know, we go to our lasses,
Yeah.
mum and dad's when they were around and that. It leaves a big hole, doesn't it, mate?
It did, yeah. It really did. I mean, she was alcoholic, so in a way I blamed her for dying young, and her mum was still alive, so I had to try and look after my nan as well.
You still see your nan?
No, she passed away a month later.
Oh, bless.
So, but she couldn't survive without my mum. She buried her daughter and she couldn't survive. So in that, it was like a split second. I ceased to become a son, because I'm not very close with my dad. He lives miles away. I ceased to become a son. I had nowhere to go, it was like my world just fell apart. But I was in the police and I was doing my job. I did lose a bit of time on the sick, I suppose you'd call it, because just needed time away from the place. I got compassionate leave and everything like that. But then that relationship I was in, she was drinking. I admit I was drinking. I mean, I'm teetotal now, I've been for years. But
You're drinking like every night?
Yeah. Stress of the job. And it's a cliche, but it is so stressful. So we were both drinking. Nobody was falling down drunk. It was just like a glass. Do you know what I mean? It was that type of thing.
Exactly. Everyone does it, mate.
You know, have a spot in your tea or something like that. And then I can remember one day we fell out. I don't even know what it was about. But I was sitting on the doorstep having a fag, and she come behind me and she kicked me in the back. And that was the start of it. I don't know why it happened. I don't know what I said that made her do it. I don't know. But she kicked me in the back, right in the spine. So hard that I lost control of my bladder. There you go.
I'll just tell you guys, I'll add this on because some of this is going to be extremely painful for Paul. That kick is still affecting him now you don't mind me telling him this, do you? In a really bad way. It's debilitating. It means he's going to be on a lifetime of meds, morphine patches, quetiapine, which is an antipsychotic, but they do use it for depression, sleep and other things. And we have discussed this, you know, that kick he's carrying with him today, which he's sort of the whole thing we're going to talk about. It's not letting it go, it's there, it's a constant reminder.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, no, I do apologise for getting upset.
No, listen mate, we're all good here.
So that happened, and then I just put it down to a one-off, I think looking back now, I didn't do anything about it. I never said anything about it.
How were you after? You know, obviously it affected you. Were you sore, stiff? Did you go see a doctor, or?
No, I didn't go and see a doctor. I didn't know how to explain it, to be honest. I just thought it's just one of those
Just get on with it.
Yeah. I suppose in a way it was like, I looked at it, it was like, you know, when your mum smacks you when you were a kid, you said something wrong, so you got smacked.
Yeah, I used to get smacked as well.
So I just put it down to that, I suppose. I don't know, but it hurt. It really did hurt, and like I say, I lost control of my bladder and stuff because of it. And it just progressed. It just progressed from there. It was like.
How was she the next day after she'd done
fine, absolutely fine.
Nothing has happened.
Same night, nothing. Didn't say anything about it. Carried on going to work, both did, you know, and we were on the same shift more or less. But then it seemed to step up a little bit, and it became every night. There would be something every night. It's like I told you, I remember being in the kitchen and she picked up the thing off the cooker that you put the pans on. Her daughter was there at the time, and she took a swing at me with that.
Been drinking again?
Yeah. It was always after a drink. It was, if she was sober, it never happened. Or, you know, if we didn't have a drink, I'll say, because I'm not going to say that she drank alone, and it wasn't like that. If we, you know, and then she took a swing at me one day with the big 2 litre bottles of whiskey, you know, the ones that you put the coins in.
Yeah.
She took a swing, tried to take my head off my shoulders with that.
Pub optics type bottle.
Yeah, and it was generally stuff like that. But then it got from violence to being chucked out of the house. And
How long were you living at that house?
Only probably 2 or 3 months, I would say. The whole relationship probably only lasted 8 months.
And was they, you know, in between drinking and the violence, was it just like normal?
Yeah, just perfectly normal. You'd go to work, come home, and it would be as if nothing had happened. It was like nothing had happened, like it was normal, just a normal thing. Suck it and see type thing, do you know what I mean? It was like, it's happened, don't say anything about it. I never said anything about it to her.
Were you embarrassed?
God, I was ashamed, mate. But I knew, because my dad used to hit my mum a lot, again through drink, and all I knew was that I never ever raised my hand back. Do you know what I mean? Never ever ever, I swear, in my kids' lives, I never raised my hand to her. And I knew I couldn't do that. That's not me.
Did she know you weren't going to do that,
She
do you
used to
think?
try and provoke me, I think, to do it. Because if I did it, then I knew that the next thing would happen, I'd be arrested. Her dad died a few months into our relationship. It was after my mum, so it was like we had 3 deaths between us, 3 massive deaths between us. And I know that affected her, because she was very close to her dad. I'm not trying to justify what she did, but whether it did something to her mind, I don't know. But after that, it got worse. The things that happened that I can't talk about, I can't say what happened. I've told you a few things.
Yeah, we have discussed this, like, obviously, I were getting upset, you know, I get upset, so, you know, the details, it don't matter, mate.
Yeah, but I ended up sleeping rough. Things would happen, she would throw me out the house, and I knew that if I didn't leave the house, she would phone the police, and I'd get arrested.
Were you fearful of that?
Yeah, because of losing my job. Because I knew that nobody would ever believe me what was going on. But every day I was going to work, and I was telling my sergeant and I was telling my inspector what was happening, and they literally just said to me, just carry on, mate. Just carry on, mate. That was all I ever got.
Did you have, right, if I go back to prison, I had managers I could talk to and managers I wouldn't tell anything. So were these 2 guys sort of approachable guys,
Yeah.
or sorts, you know?
I thought they were
Stand-up guys?
yeah, decent, straight people. I did say to him, I don't want it to go any further, but I need your help with this, because I don't know what to do. And they never told me anything. I know I'm a grown man, but I was in such a mess because of what was going on, and like losing my mum and stuff like that I couldn't work out what to do. I was going to what I thought was home, being assaulted, and then being pushed out the house, having to sleep in my car, sleep in the field, in a garage, and still had to go to work the next day, because if you went on the sick, they'd be on you. And they weren't interested in why you were on the sick, it was how much time you'd had on the sick, basically. So it got to the stage where I couldn't deal with it any longer. Things were happening that were very, very painful to me, like physically painful. I'd lost everything, I hadn't got anything. All the stuff that my nan and my mum had left had been destroyed and things like that. And I was literally living in the car in the daytime and trying to go back and have a shower and stuff, and things would happen and I'd get told to leave again, you know, and so I'd end up in the car again.
Do you want me to ask you about some of the physical stuff so you can just reply, because we did say that some of it is very difficult to talk about, or do you want to just not? You have got physical scars, haven't you? As in?
Yeah, I have, yeah. It's a bit hard to, it was like easy to talk to you, but knowing that loads of people are going to say this is a bit difficult.
Well, I'm sure people will understand that, so without going into details, she had nails, the acrylic nails, and she used them to good effect, leaving permanent scars. That's a fair...
Yeah, I've got scars. I've got quite a few scars. I've got like tattoos now that cover the scars. That was part of being tattooed. I think the scars that are up here, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because the physical side always heals.
Well, of course it does.
But the mental side, and that's what it got to me. It was like, it was things happening every night. It was losing everything. I wasn't able to see my kids because I was such a mess. I was struggling to keep myself clean, to have like a clean uniform, and I was struggling to do my job. And one day, I can't remember what happened, but I thought, that's it. I can't do this any longer. So I was in my car and sorry, mate.
No, come on, it's alright, kid. No, you take your time. If you don't want to talk about it,
That's okay.
just take your time.
The only two people I got in my life were my kids.
Who you still have a good
Yeah,
relationship with now, and your ex-missus,
Yeah.
and your wife is there as well, supporting you now.
Yeah. So, the only two people I've got were my kids, so I owed it to them just to speak to them. And I
How old were they then, Paul?
I think my daughter was about 13, 14, something like that. And obviously I just wanted to see him just one last time. So I went to the ex's house. I didn't know she was there. And my daughter was there. I knew my daughter would be there.
Yeah.
And I knew that as long as I saw the kids, then that was enough for me. I knew they were safe. I knew they'd be looked after. But because I'd failed in everything, I thought that I would take my own life, rid them of the problem with me. But
Your missus saw your pain, didn't she, mate? Your
Yeah.
ex-missus.
yeah, she did, bless her. And my daughter, I can remember how...
Alright, now I'm getting
Yeah.
upset, so we can like sit here together like a proper soft asses, yeah?
Yeah. My ex-wife came to the door and she saw me. And she was like, what is going on? And I was like, I'm okay. And she says, you're not okay. And I went to go, like, because obviously I didn't want to tell her. I didn't want to tell her.
Of course you don't. You've already said you were a failure.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure nobody would call you a failure.
And she said, just come in. She said, just come in and have a cup of tea. And I thought, well, I could do with the drink, to be honest. But the thought process was still there. I'll have this drink
And away you go.
and I can go. And then everybody's okay then. But she was like a dog with a bone, do you know what I mean? She wouldn't let it go.
Well, good on her. She obviously knew you, because you've been married, you got kids together, and she could see that.
Yeah. And
that you were in a lot of pain.
I told her. I hadn't really told anybody else.
Did you tell her that day?
Yeah, I told her. Over the cup of tea, I suppose, really. I can remember saying to her, she's been eating me. And she was like, what? She was amazed, like, because she knew that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you're talking, you know, she's a little, the girl I was with, only little thing like, and you wouldn't
Like my
think
mate's ex-missus, 5 foot petite,
Yeah.
size 6.
So she literally said to me, she says, "You're not leaving here." Because I said, "I'm going to go now. I'll look
You
after
think she knew what your intention was?
I think so. I mean, I didn't tell her. Obviously, didn't tell her. But yeah, I said, "Just, I'll get off now." Like I said, "Just look after yourself. Thanks for today." You know what I mean? And she says, "You're not going." She says, "You've got to stay." I was like, nah, it's okay. And she was like, "Well, where are you going and all this?" And I would obviously, I just lied to her, like, and she says, "No, you're staying here." And I
So
can't.
she in effect took you in?
Yeah, she took me off the street, basically. So I stayed there, to be honest. I stayed there for a bit.
How long do you know? No.
Maybe a couple of months, I bet. And
How do, guys? Back with Paul. Sorry about that. Camera got a little warm. So we're back at your missus's, mate.
yeah, the ex-missus was good. She said she wouldn't let me leave on that day. She said, you need to stay here and stuff. And I didn't want to. I really didn't want to.
Had you made your mind up?
Yeah, I was ready. That was
Had you
it.
decided how you were going to do it?
In the car.
You're just going to use fumes? Exhaust, carbon monoxide?
Yeah, that was it. That was because I hadn't got anything else. I'd only got the car, and I thought, at least I can just go to sleep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're the same. You've seen people hang themselves, and the trauma.
Oh, yeah,
trauma.
Well, there's sadly what you call hard deaths and soft deaths.
Yeah, I wanted the easy one.
You know, that I would. Oh, and that's not anybody who's taking their own life like that. It is. You basically go to sleep. It's like medication.
Yeah, and that was what I was ready to do. I'd got the stuff to do it. All in the car. I knew where I was going to go. I wasn't going to. I knew it'd be bad for the people who found me because I'd found people. But I suppose I was being a little bit selfish and thinking, well, I'll take my own life and I'm out of it. But the ex said, no, you can't leave. You've got to stay here. You've got to stay with the kids. And she made all excuses up and why I'd got to stay. And so I stayed, and it was like, well, I'll just stay tonight type thing. But I stayed there, like I say, probably a couple of months.
So after that first day when you were going to take your own life, did that ease the crisis then? So had you put that to bed for then?
No, not at first. It was like when I get the chance. Do you know what I mean? It literally was when I got the chance. I'll do it, I'll get the chance. But the more I was around the kids, I couldn't.
No, you don't have to say. I know what you're going to say, mate. Did the kids at that idea have an age what you were going through?
My daughter did. My daughter knew. She heard what, because I was telling my wife. My daughter knew.
How old was she at that point? Can you remember?
Literally 13 or 14.
13, 14, sorry.
But she was very, very grown up for that age, I suppose. And she knew. My son didn't. And I just stayed there. And at first, like I say, it was literally when I get a chance, I've just had enough. I was so embarrassed. I was ashamed. All this time it had been happening, I'd been speaking to my sergeant and my inspector about things. And
why were you ashamed? Were you ashamed because you'd let it happen? Were you ashamed to tell anyone because you're a man?
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I was ashamed that I'd put myself. I'd gone back after the first time, because in my heart I knew that I should have walked away. The first time it happened, I should have left. I should have just packed my stuff and left, but I didn't. So it was my fault. That's how I felt. I felt because I hadn't walked, it was me. It was my fault. And obviously she blamed me for it, saying that I made her do it and stuff. And that was the reason. It was like, it was my fault. I should have walked away. I spent days and days of work telling victims of domestic violence to walk away, get your stuff and leave.
You did say that was the biggest part of your job, didn't you? Coventry.
It is, yeah. Any copper who turns around and says that it's not, ain't telling the truth, because it is so prevalent. It's so unbelievably prevalent. We used to call it like domestic Sundays, when families would be together all day, and that, you know, that's when stuff used to happen.
A bit of a barbecue, alcohol starts flowing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And just explain how you would deal arriving at a domestic situation, what the sort of process would be.
What you'd always do, you'd turn up, you'd always had somebody who would have phoned up and made the complaint. And what the controllers used to do, they would obviously listen to the conversation and they would pick out certain things, and if somebody had said, "He has hit me," then you would go in and you were going to arrest somebody. Somebody was coming in for that, rightly so. If you didn't arrest somebody, the above, you know, your inspectors and people would want to know why. You would be in trouble if you hadn't arrested somebody. Once that accusation had been made, once whoever, male or female, had said their partner, whoever it is, has hit me, somebody was coming in for that. And every time you went, that was what we're saying. You know, people would phone up, "Oh, he's done this, she's done that, he's hit me." So you knew somebody was coming in.
Was it difficult turning up at these situations? Because obviously you've got a bit of information, like maybe he's hit her, and then you know, looking at it, maybe it's the other way round. Do you sort of react, or do you go with the? Is it not an easy?
Apart from there was a lot of people who you'd say were repeat offenders, and you'd be going there every week. But then you'd always get new ones who'd come in, and you although the accusation had been made, you would think to yourself, is this really what's happened? But it didn't make any difference. If she'd said, "He's hit me," whoever he was coming in, because the accusation had been made. Even if you got there and they turned around and said, "He didn't actually hit me, I made it up," you'd still have to bring him in. He was still coming in, no matter what.
Was well, I probably know the answer to this, but percentage-wise, was the biggest male on female?
Yeah, without doubt.
Have you any idea of, you know?
I never ever went to a female on male.
In how long? 7 years?
About 7 years, yeah. Never. I can't even remember hearing about one. Even with same-sex couples or anything like that, I never ever went to one, a female on male assault. Never. It just didn't happen. Or you didn't find out about it. You weren't told about it. So I didn't know how what was happening to me would be viewed, to be honest.
Were you concerned about that?
Yeah, because like, you know, I did my job and stuff like that, and I suppose I was a bit of one of the lads, you know, and I could have a bit of a flare up with somebody and stuff like that, and you know, if anybody needed assistance, I was always first there, get stuck in and stuff, you know. But then to know I was getting knocked about by somebody, but it's different because you've got to stand there and let them do it. Do you know what I mean? You can't do anything about it. You can't hit them back. You can't pin them to the floor. You can't do anything. You've just got to stand there and let them do it.
I don't know how you're brought up, you know, we're not massively different in age, but I was brought up, my mum and my nan, I remember it, in fact, all of us, where you can't hit women.
Yeah.
If someone's trying to hit you, you can defend yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can hold them, but you can't hit women. And that's that. I remember that, it was like a mantra. It was...
I was brought up to believe that you didn't raise your hands to a woman, but my dad did. My dad knocked my mum senseless, and I saw it. But in my eyes, you couldn't hit a woman. So it's really confusing, because he's the man who brought me up telling me I couldn't hit a woman.
Really?
But then he could hit my mum when he was drunk. So it was confusing, do you know what I mean? But I knew that I couldn't, whatever happened to me, I could never hit a woman. And I never have done. And I've always looked on it that I've never hit anybody weaker than me. Because what's the point? What you're trying to prove? That you can beat somebody up smaller than you, less strength than you. And that's how I always looked at it. Just, you know, you'd go to jobs and you'd have somebody and you knew that you could do whatever with them if you wanted to, but what's the point? Just restrain them, and that's the end of it.
Let's suppose you went to a regular.
Yeah.
You knew some guy was beating his partner or whoever in the house. What would the process be then?
You just
get arrested.
Yeah, lock him up, charge him with whatever.
And how serious were the repercussions from that? You know, were they? What I'm asking is, do you feel that domestic violence is dealt with properly, and people get sentences that are appropriate?
I don't think so. There were a lot of times. It was the old cliche that you'd bail, you know, you'd have your prisoner and you'd bail him, and his thing would be not to return to the address. But then
he'd go straight back there,
and they would carry on the relationship. And I know it's wrong, and I know it shouldn't happen, but it does happen that the woman would phone up, report him for what happened, and then be on the phone a few minutes later, once he'd been arrested, be on the phone saying, "Oh, I want to drop the complaint, I don't want to press charges." And I don't know what the answer is. You know, domestic violence, it's so bad and it affects you so badly, but it leaves you feeling very vulnerable as well.
So at what point you decided you were going to put a complaint in?
I'd sort of got myself into a place where I was still living with the ex-partner. I applied for police accommodation and got that, which like
you were still living with your missus, your ex-missus?
Yeah, ex-missus. Yeah. I applied for police accommodation to give me a little start to get myself back.
What's police accommodation?
It's basically a flat, a room. You know, like it's like a little hotel, I suppose you'd call it. You get a room, communal kitchen. It's all police officers. It's normally the people who've just joined. They live a fair distance away, so the police provide them with accommodation.
Right.
It's cheap accommodation. It was like £300 a month or something like that, but you get everything, all your electric and everything thrown in and stuff. So I applied for that and got it. Looking back now, it was probably the worst thing I did, because it alienated me from anybody who wasn't in the police. I felt very lonely, but I was able to get back to work.
Did you have, sort of away from the police up to that point, did you have a social life? No. Did you have mates who you could talk to?
No, when I joined the police I lost a lot of mates.
So like the prison service, you end up basically, you know, family and friends sort of go out the window, and it's just...
Yeah, you live and breathe the
24
police.
hours a day, whether you're on shift or not.
Yeah, you live and breathe the police. You tend to... I mean, I wasn't a drinker, but, you know, if there's any social gatherings, it's just police only, and, you know, just the way it is. You know, the last thing you did in Coventry is go out and tell everybody you're a police officer. It just don't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
You'd be stupid to. So I got in police accommodation and I was working on my shift. She was still on the shift, and I was trying to be adult about it, I suppose, really. And you know, if I made a cup of tea, I'd make her one and stuff like that. But all the time, it was wearing away at me that I was telling people to do things. I was going to domestics and I was saying to people, you need to do this, you need to do that, and I wasn't doing it. It happened to me and I wasn't doing it. So I decided to make a complaint. Not when I say a complaint, I don't mean like complain about something, but to make it official, to say that I had been assaulted and this is the person who's done it. So I went to saw my domestic violence officer.
Was that male or female?
Female. She was amazed when I told her. Basically said to me, if you want to put a statement in, make it official, that's entirely up to you. I can remember her saying, I'll support you as much as I can. That was the last time I ever saw her.
So this domestic violence officer, is that a domestic there for police, domestic violence within the police, or is was that another job?
Another job. It was like
so it's not, is it like
no,
HR, human resources or something?
Oh no, she was I think she was a sergeant, and or she was just progressing up to being a sergeant, and she dealt all the domestic violence cases that came in would be passed to her. Although you deal with them, the paperwork would go to her, and she would look at it and she would speak to the victims or tell you a certain way of dealing with it and things like that. If you've got an issue that you needed resolving, you could go and speak to her and she'd put you in touch with certain groups of people who could help.
So she was basically there for people in the community.
Yeah.
And not there for you.
No. There is nobody there for a police officer. Not just me, but any police officer. But anyway, I did that. I put my statement in. I just crimed it, which is put it on the police computer basically.
Did it have a number then?
Yeah, report it as a crime.
How was that making you feel? How nervous were you? How was it uncomfortable?
Yeah, it was very, very uncomfortable.
Easier to walk away?
It would have been. I could have, if I could have ignored it, the fact that it had happened, then yeah.
Is it already affecting you up here now?
Yeah, it's good. It was doing my head. So I did that. I put a crime report in. I had to do it all myself. Didn't, get anybody come and sit with me and say.
Did you have an HR department?
Yeah, they're hopeless.
Well,
all they were bothered about was when you're on the sick.
Getting you back to work.
Yeah, or getting rid of you. Making things as difficult as you can for them.
Yep.
I never had any contact with them. The only contact I had was with the domestic violence officer. And it was like, if you want to report it, do it yourself. We ain't going to get anybody to come and sit with you and help you with a statement. But anyway, I put a full statement in, put a crime report in. And it was just like lighting a bonfire. Everything just happened so quick. I couldn't work on the same shift. I was told as soon as, because the word spread as soon as I put the statements in, I was told as soon as that happened, the only thing we can do for you is move you off the shift. We're not going to move her off the shift.
Yeah, you've made a complaint that you have to move shifts, you have to work with different people or whatever.
Yeah, basically that.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of that as well.
It's your fault. You've got to suffer now. You've got to go onto a new shift, change all your shift pattern and everything like that.
Yeah.
She hasn't. You've got to prove that she's done it. Whereas a member of the public doesn't have to prove anything. Their word is good enough, but my word wasn't good enough. About this time, I was under the doctor anyway, so I went and saw the doctor and I explained what's happening, and he said to me, "You are not fit for that job at the moment. I'm signing you off." And I said, "I don't want to be signed off." And he said, I'm not really bothered what you say. I am signing you off.
Did your doctor Had you told them what was going on?
Yeah.
So basically, your doctor, I'm all for mentioning people who supported you.
Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant.
And he obviously saw that, you know, maybe how you were or whatever, that it was not somewhere you should be.
Yeah. I was in a dream state. It was just not reality. It was just, I don't know, it was just all over the place.
Well, at the end of the day, you're a man. You know, there's a bit of jack lad, you'll get stuck in. If you turn up to something and something's going off, you're in there and you've complained that your girlfriend's beating you up.
Yeah, basically that's
basically.
it.
I'm not demeaning it. That is how
that's what
it
was.
will have been seen.
That's exactly what it was. And I felt like I was being told I was a liar. Nobody could imagine her doing this, so I'm a liar. Because if I was out on the street and I said she'd hit me, they would have arrested her. But because I was a police officer, they wouldn't believe me. So the next thing that happens is, within a couple of days, I'm called in by my superintendent.
Does that make you nervous seeing are they the biggest? Are they at the top?
Head of the station. You didn't go and see him unless A, you were going to get praised, or B,
you're in trouble.
Yeah. And I will say what he said, and there's a little bit of swearing. I don't know whether it affects you.
No, you can swear as much as you want, mate.
I walked into his office. I went to sit down. He said, "Don't fucking sit down." And I looked at him and I thought, "Shit, what have I done?" And he said, "This fucking thing." And he'd got the report in his hand. He'd got my statement in his hand.
Well, you see what you've done. You're now a thorn in his side.
Yeah.
You've put an official complaint in. He's a superintendent.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting it on his toes now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And he said to me, he said, "You need to fucking drop this now." And then he said to me, "And I'll tell you something, I'll have your fucking job." And those were his words. And I got up and I walked out the office. And that was the last contact I had with him. I thought, there's no point in me going to work because I've got too many people against me. So I took the doctor's advice. I've come out of police accommodation as much as I could. I did need somewhere to stay, but I needed to be away from the police because I couldn't trust anybody. That's how I felt. I couldn't trust anybody. I was a liar. That was it. They were saying I was a liar. I needed to drop it. Didn't matter what happened, I'd got to drop it. Within a couple of weeks, I had a phone call because we work for a certain area of police. The offences were committed in another force area, so it was another force that dealt with it. She wasn't arrested. She was asked to come in for a voluntary interview. At no time at all was she arrested, which she should have been. The sergeant phoned me up who dealt with it. He said, all she said is she's drunk and she can't remember. And that's it.
Would that get someone out of domestic violence in court?
Not at all. You were told in training, being drunk is not a defence.
Well, it's not a defence, is it?
No. So I said that to him, and his answer to me was, "Don't tell me my fucking job," and slammed the phone down. And that was the last I ever heard of it. I wasn't spoken to by complaints and discipline within the police service, which I expected. I wasn't spoken to by them. So that was it really. I knew that.
Were you on the sick? How long did he sign you off for?
Oh, he signed me off for months.
Months?
It was like an open sick notice. He says, "You're not going back to work until you're ready. Until I decided that you were ready."
So you've had well, it's not an investigation. You've been told in no uncertain terms that nothing's happening. Basically, you're on your own. They're not going to deal with it. How long did you stay on sick before you chucked you?
Probably a month, something like that. It weren't that long until I got the phone call off my inspector, and he said, "You need to choose what you want to do." So I just said, "I'll bring my warrant card in." I knew there was no future. I knew I'd lost my career because I stood up for what I thought was right.
Yep. And that was it?
Yeah, that was it. I just walked into the station one day with all my kit and I just handed it over with my warrant card.
Did you keep in touch with anybody?
Nobody ever spoke to me ever again. I did bump into, a few years later, I bumped into a few bobbies who I knew.
Were you embarrassed?
Yeah. I felt like I was being looked down on, that they were, you know, they just thought I was a liar. They spoke to me, they were nice with me and friendly and
civil
stuff like that, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
fair dues to them then.
But there were people on my shift who knew what was happening, and none of them stood up for me. My sergeant and my inspector, they denied.
Was there any words of comfort from the people you worked with, or no?
No, not at all. Nothing at all. I would say my sergeant and my inspector in the investigation, they denied the conversations ever took place. So I just knew that my career was done. That was it. The job I thought was the rest of my life.
It's gone.
Yeah. And I came out with nothing. Obviously I had to leave police accommodation.
You came out with your integrity, mate.
Well, yeah, I used to sit there and think to myself, well, I can stand up and say I didn't lie.
It doesn't help though, does it?
Nah, not when you've lost everything. Because you'd sort of give everything back to have it back. And even now, I still miss the job. Because it was a job I always wanted to do.
It's 13 years ago, this is it?
Yeah.
13 years ago.
Everybody was so proud that I did it. And I felt proud to do it. And I lost it because I stood up for myself. Because I got to a stage where I thought doing the right thing. You know, I was doing the right thing. I was being honest, and I was doing what I was told to do. You know, you can't let people do it.
There's a process, and you were following that. It's a process you did every single day for people.
Yeah.
Women. In domestic violence situations.
How can you tell somebody to do something and not do it yourself? You devalue what you're telling them to do. How can you support somebody and you can't do it yourself?
So 13 years ago, Paul, how has that affected your life?
I feel pretty worthless, if I'm honest. It's still...
I think we ought to explain about the tattoos. You've always tattooed, haven't you?
Yeah. What happened, because I needed an outlet when I left the police. So I just opened a tattoo studio. To believe it or not, it's totally opposites to what I was doing. Like, kept that going for 5 years, but the injury to my back made it so painful.
That's from the initial,
from the
first kick.
From the kick, yeah. And that's what doctors have said, that the injury I've suffered to my back has caused problems with my discs and stuff. It just became so painful.
So end of the day, you've got a bad back now.
Yeah.
That is going to be with the arrest at life medication, which is attached to that incident, which is part of the reason why you're carrying it around with you.
Yeah. It's like it is a constant reminder. And I think to myself, why didn't I move? Why did I let her do it? You know, and stuff like that. And I haven't got an answer to why I didn't move or why I let her do it. You know, I blame myself for all the pain.
I'm sure, well, listen, I know for a fact a lot of mostly lasses, domestic violence that I've spoke to, we've mentioned the freedom course before. It's about recognising being controlled, made to feel worthless. One lass I talked to, she was on a lot of medication. She kept being told by her partner she needed them meds, she couldn't look after her kids, she was fucked in head. She gradually come off them meds without telling him, and you know, over a 6-month period, and then all of a sudden she's like thinking clear and thinking there's nothing wrong with me, it's how I'm being treated. So
it does take you a long time to think it through. And like you say, it's been 13 years for me and it still haunts me. And I've been married now for 9 years.
Lovely lass, supports him. She's encouraged him to come today. I'll tell you now, it's been not a long process. We haven't really talked other than today, have we? We've had a short conversation, we've had some text messages. you got in touch with us, but obviously you can see that you've been carrying this round now for 13 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I met her. It was through this having the shop like I met my wife and stuff.
Have you tattooed the missus still?
Yeah. Free, of course. But, you know, when we first got together, because I didn't think it was fair that she didn't know, because I was so fucked in the head.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Because when I opened the studio, I lived in the studio. I wouldn't go and stay with anybody. I couldn't do that. I had my dog, which I've still got now, my big Rottweiler, and it was just me and him. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I knew that I couldn't live with anybody. I couldn't do anything. Although we had this relationship, she would just touch my arm or something and I would jump out of my skin. It's literally petrified.
Couldn't sleep.
No.
Sleep on edge at bed, fearful of something happening.
I used to sleep right on the edge of the mattress. I still do it sometimes now, out of habit. And she would move, like roll over or something or anything, or just touch my, and I would jump out of bed, literally. And then I would make so many stupid excuses.
Your missus, Eve, has said, you know, obviously not easy at first. We talked about some of the things, we don't need to discuss them. Things that affect you and make you feel worthless. You know, not a man or whatever. Sometimes, I know I talk about this shit, mate, but it's about giving yourself a break, into it, end of the day.
Yeah.
You're obviously fearful what people might be judgmental about what we've talked about.
Yeah, I thought about doing this, you know, and I'd watched all your podcasts and YouTubes and read your book, and I thought, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to live or die by it. Do you know what I mean? People are going to see it who know me. I know that, and people will judge me.
But you know, people can have an opinion and judge. Like I said to you before, there's lots of people talk to me, and I've not been in their situations. You know, I've not lived their lives. All you can do is sort of support them. You know, agree with them, assure them that they've done nothing wrong. They're not at fault in any of this. We will be keeping in touch.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I will fly down your end for a brew.
Yeah. I think
There's bits, do you know what, Paul? There's bits that we talked about that I don't think we need to talk about. You know, personal stuff. I think you put yourself out there now. Are you happy?
Yeah.
You seem a little bit more relaxed now.
It's
I
like,
understand your angst and everything.
It's like the only thing that I wanted to say, and it's like I said to you, is I don't want people to ever think they can't approach the police.
There you go.
Because
You've got to believe in processes, haven't you?
Because if you know, that's what they're there for. And I still respect the job they do. Not some of the people.
Yeah.
But I still respect the job they do. And if you are in that situation and you need to phone them, you phone them. And you get them there. And you make yourself safe. Do you know what I mean, mate?
Yeah. It's alright, mate. Are we right?
Yeah.
We'll go and get a drink.
Yeah.
Happy?
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm a good man.
Thanks for coming, guys. That's Paul. Gonna go and have a drink with him and Eve. Cheers.
Yeah, nice one.
Hold on, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks for telling your story.